Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming to this press briefing. I am Brian Look. I'm a lieutenant with the Wyoming Department of Public Safety. This is an update in regards to the shooting which resulted in a homicide last night at 2924 Taft Avenue. I'm very pleased to report that we have located the person of interest in this case, Miss Sakina Muhammad, the child of Ava, still a little short on how we pronounce that. Winston has also been located. Very pleased to report also that she is safe. The police department investigators are still in the process of collecting evidence. They do have her in custody and will be proceeding with the investigation at this time. Child Protective Services is involved with the case to determine where Ava will be going.
Where was she going out?
Is at a place at a home in Grand Rapids, and at this point in time, that's all we're going to be able to disclose about that.
About what time of the day was she found here this morning or later on, or when was the child in the located?
Recently. Yes, that was the reason that we were delaying on meetings so we could provide up-to-date information for you.
Hey, can you tell us a little bit about the condition of the child? Was the child, she appeared to be in harm? Did she appear to be in safe? Or?
Every indication that we have, the child was unharmed and is safe, and I can assure you at this point in time the child is safe because she is being protected and being cared for.
I understand that the investigation is ongoing. Has Ms. Muhammad said anything about the murder of the live-in boyfriend or why she ran or anything of that nature?
No, sir, not at this point in time.
Is she still the suspect for the homicide?
She is still our only person of interest in this homicide, yes.
And is there a possibility that this was self-defense, especially given the victim's criminal history of domestic assault charges?
We are aware that there are prior domestic incidents involving this. There are existing court orders that were preventing or that were in place to prevent the two of them to be together, listing Sakina as a protected person from Mr. Winston. However, without having a chance to interview her yet, we do not know those leads yet.
And what is your message just to women in those type of DP situations, if she was in fact in the DP situation, because it seemed like this could have been handled potentially differently?
Obviously, we want people to remove themselves from any dangerous situations. We understand the difficulties that do arise in living conditions, and however, it is just best to get out of those conditions to protect yourself and protect your loved ones. There's always help available to you through shelters, through the police department, through different resources that are out there that we can provide assistance with you.
And we know that the child is safe now, but what has to happen for this to have become an Amber Alert nationwide type situation? We know you guys put out like a missing person, endangered person, but what would have had to take to happen for this to be an Amber Alert situation?
Well, this was a case of a custodial parent having it. We did submit the process or the paperwork to into the state police for the process to be entered into an Amber Alert. This just did not meet the criteria for it because there was no known threat to Ava at the time. We understand that, a horrific crime happened, but at the time there is nothing that was saying that Ava was going to be a victim of a crime. So the other, a child is missing program was enacted, and then the endangered missing was sent out statewide as well. So all the resources that we could at the time were being utilized.
Was the mom at all injured?
I do not know, but I have not seen her, so I do not know if she was at this time or not. So.
What will happen next? How do you determine whether or not this was self-defense or what orders were broken?
That'll all be done through the investigation, through interviewing with her, and then they will present their case to the Kent County prosecutor to determine if there are any charges that are applicable in this.
What kind of firearm was used, do you know, and if it was legally obtained?
I believe it was a legally owned firearm. What type it was, I do not know at this time.
How many shots? Where? Who called 911?
Well, nobody called 911. The mother of Sakina had contacted us to do the welfare check based on some information that she had that there was some sort of domestic disturbance going on at their residence. And so when we got there is when we located Mr. Winston.
And how close of that working relationship is in the GRPD? You mentioned that the child was found in the home in Grand Rapids. What was the line of communication like between the two different departments?
Well, information's put out to everybody. I mean, our detectives have obviously been in here last night since 10 o'clock. They've not rested until they do. Multi-jurisdictional teams come into play. The cooperation between all agencies. Crime really doesn't understand jurisdictional boundaries, and so information going out to all agencies to be involved is paramount in something like this.
Is the home cooperating?
What's that?
Is your suspect cooperating?
I don't know at this point in time. I didn't want to keep everybody waiting. I can tell you she is in custody and is going to be questioned by our detectives. The level of cooperation, I don't know.
Was it Cherokee or Wyoming PD that picked her up, or did she turn herself in?
Both. Not turned herself in. It was both the agencies that were involved in taking her into custody. So.
And it sounds like when you arrived on the scene, there was no one there other than your deceased victim. Is
That is accurate.
And also, what did you charge when you arrested her? What did you charge her with?
She's not been charged with anything yet.
Yes. How did you find her? Like, somebody said she's here, or she's in no place?
I'm not aware of that yet, sir.
Do you expect any more updates throughout the day?
Absolutely. As we can get updates for you, I will send them out.
How long did you hold her then without charges? Curious, you got her in custody. What's our next process? Because how long are you going to hold?
I guess until they are able to get their interview in, they are not going to be able to determine what charges they are going to be going for or what evidence exists or does not exist.
So what's the next step for the child? So she's with Child Protective Services. Do you guys try to find a loved one to put the child in the home with the loved one, or what happens next?
Obviously, the safety of Ava is most important. At this point in time, Child Protective Services will do their investigation to make sure that if they can go with a family member, it's always best for a child to be put with a family member versus put in some sort of separate housing. So if that family member does exist, then by all means the child will go with a family member.
And just to make sure I heard you correctly, it was Muhammad's mother who called the department and said, hey, you might want to do a well-being check on this deceased.
Correct.
And so I guess she's working pretty closely with you guys. Kind of give you insight.
That's where we got the original. I to tell you if she to know that it was going to go to this extent, obviously, she was wanting us to check on the well-being of them, which we're doing, which is what resulted in, us finding, Mr. Kwan had been shot. So.
And the last question for me, have you heard from the deceased victim's family?
Yes, the investigators have spoken with him. Yep. We wouldn't have released his name prior to this without proper family notification. So.
Can you talk about how difficult these types of situations are, especially when there's a history of domestic issues, potential protection orders? We can all have that if we want in the court in an ideal world, but people break them, and it creates danger.
It does, and obviously this is a tragic end of what happened. If these two would have been separated, this is potentially an avoidable circumstance. But the protection order are in place to help protect a victim from somebody that has been convicted of crime or is thought to have been committed a crime. However, it is still a piece of paper that if a human chooses to circumvent that and go against what a court-ordered process is, tragic things can happen. They are in place for a reason. They do allow us certain actions if we were to find people in violation of them, which does help alleviate certain problems in certain circumstances. However, in a case like this, if people were willingly together, there is not much that you're going to do to stop that.
Sorry, excuse me, you said the gun was legal or registered? Is it registered Who was it registered to?
Well, and to tell you that the gun that is suspected in this, I've not heard yet whether or not we have possession of that firearm yet. But the suspect does have a legally registered firearm registered to her.
Was that, do you know when she got that firearm?
I do not.